If you keep finding yourself in the crosshairs at work while the people around you somehow get left alone, stop for a second, because what you're about to hear is going to change the way you see every difficult coworker you've ever had. This is not a story about you being fragile. It's not about you being a soft target, a pushover, or someone who just attracts trouble. There are specific, predictable things about certain people that make them light up on a toxic person's radar. And here's the part nobody tells you. Once you can name those things, you can switch them off. I'm Dre, and on this channel, we don't do the comforting version of how work operates. We look at what's actually happening underneath the smiles, the team lunches, and the corporate values painted on the break room wall. So let me say this plainly. You are not imagining it. Some people genuinely do get targeted more than others. And if you've lived it, you've probably lain awake asking yourself the same brutal question. What am I doing wrong? Why is it always me? Here's the uncomfortable answer. Toxic people behave like predators, and predators do not choose at random. They read the room. They run small tests. They look for specific signals that quietly tell them you're someone they can push. By the time this video is over, you're going to understand exactly why they picked you, the traits they hunt for, and how to make yourself the last person in the building they'd ever try. So let's get into it. Trait 1. You have boundaries, but you don't enforce them. The first thing that turns you into a target is simple. You say no, but everything else about you says maybe. Picture it. Someone strolls over and says, "Hey, I know you're slammed, but could you take a quick look at this for me?" You answer honestly, "I'd love to, but I'm really buried right now. I don't think I can." And then they lean in. "Come on, it'll take you 20 minutes. I'm desperate here." And what happens? You fold. You stay late, you do their work, and you quietly stew about it for the rest of the night. That moment is exactly what a toxic person is scanning for. They test your edges the way a scientist runs an experiment, and if you cave on the second push, they file you away as workable. You've just taught them that your no is only the opening offer in a negotiation. And understand the mechanism, because it matters. They are not going after your weakness. They are going after your guilt and your need to be liked. They know you don't want to look difficult. You don't want the friction. So they turn all of that into a lever. 3 signs this is you. First, you apologize when you set a limit. You say, "So sorry, but I can't help with that." That sorry leaks guilt, and toxic people smell guilt the way sharks smell blood. Second, you over-explain. Instead of a clean, "I can't take that on," you hand them a 5-minute tour of your entire workload. Every detail becomes ammunition. They'll say, "Well, if your big meeting isn't until Thursday, you've clearly got room for this." Third, you crack under the cold shoulder. They go quiet and distant, and within an hour you're thinking, "Did I upset them? Maybe I should just help to smooth it over." That flinch is the whole point. Trait 2. You're good at your job, and that threatens them. This one feels backwards, so stay with me. You might be thinking, "I thought toxic people went after the weak." They don't. Insecure people don't attack the incompetent. They attack the competition. They go after the person who makes their own mediocrity visible. Watch how it plays out. You deliver a strong presentation. Your manager praises you in front of the room. You're getting noticed. And suddenly, a coworker who was perfectly pleasant last week starts acting strange. Maybe they're suddenly very concerned about how much you're taking on. Maybe they're dropping little comments to other people about how you're trying a bit too hard. Maybe a rumor starts drifting back to you. None of that is random. When you shine, their averageness gets exposed, and rather than raise their own game, they'd rather drag you down to where they're standing. 3 red flags you're in this. First, your work keeps getting borrowed. You float an idea in a meeting, and by the afternoon, someone else is pitching it upstairs like it was theirs, or they shrink your wins. You land a huge client and they shrug. Well, that one was basically going to close itself. Second, they suddenly want to help you. This one's slippery. They offer to jump on your project, to support you, but what they're really doing is wedging themselves into your success so they can claim a slice of the credit or quietly sabotage you from the inside. Third, they spotlight your tiniest slip in public while their own misses vanish into silence. You make one typo and it's a group discussion. They blow a deadline and somehow nobody noticed. The logic is straightforward. Your competence is a threat to their ego, and a toxic person will protect their ego long before they'll do good work. Quick gut check before we keep going. If you're already nodding at one of these, that recognition is the most useful thing you'll feel today. So hold on to it, because the second half of this video is where we turn it into something you can actually use against them. Trait 3. You're emotionally reactive, and they feed on it. The third trait is that you visibly come undone. You get upset, you defend yourself, you scramble to fix the relationship the moment it feels off. Here's what you have to absorb. Every reaction you hand them is fuel. Manipulators don't just want to rattle you. They want the reaction itself. That's the payoff. Say a coworker drops a passive-aggressive line in a meeting. Something like, "I'm sure we'll hit the deadline this time," assuming everybody actually pulls their weight. And they glance at you as they say it. What do? You flush, your stomach drops, you jump in to defend yourself. "I always hit my deadlines. I don't know what you're talking about." And right there, they've won, because they got the show they came for. Remember this: normal people want to end conflict. Toxic people want to manufacture it, because the conflict is the entertainment, and your distress makes them feel powerful. 3 signs you're handing them that supply. First, you get visibly rattled, you argue, you stress out where they can see it, in your face, your voice, your body. Second, you try to win them over. You think, if I just prove I'm a decent person, they'll ease up. So you're extra nice, you try harder, you chase their approval. It never lands, because they don't want peace, they want drama. Third, you vent about them constantly. They love this, because even venting to a third party means they're living in your head rent-free. And more often than not, what you said circles right back to them. Trait 4. You're isolated with no social cover. The fourth trait is that you don't have backup. Maybe you're newer. Maybe you're quieter. Maybe you just haven't built strong allies yet. Toxic people clock this instantly. Bullies, whether on a playground or in a corner office, choose targets who can't call for reinforcements. Because if you stand alone, who exactly is going to defend you when the rumors start? Think about the person who eats lunch at their desk, skips the after-work drinks, isn't in the group chat, isn't plugged into the informal network. When a toxic coworker starts pinning problems on them, nobody steps in, because nobody knows them well enough to say, "Hold on, that doesn't sound right." The wiring here is tribal. Humans are pack animals, built to protect our own and shrug at everyone else. If you're in nobody's pack, you're exposed. 3 signs you're isolated in a way that makes you a target. First, there's no one who defends you when you're not in the room. If you get trashed in a meeting you're not in, the silence does the damage. Second, you're outside the informal loop. You learn about decisions after they're made. You're not in the side conversations. You're always half a step behind. Third, leadership doesn't know you well enough to dismiss a smear. If someone walks into your boss's office and says, "I'm a little worried about their commitment," your boss has no personal read on you to wave it off. So the doubt just sits there and grows. Trait 5. You're empathetic and they exploit your conscience. The last one might sting because it's a genuine strength being turned against you. You give people the benefit of the doubt. You try to see their side. You assume good intent. And toxic people mine that ruthlessly. Your empathy becomes the blade. Here's the play. A toxic coworker confides in you. They're going through something hard, a breakup, a sick parent, money trouble. And because you actually care, you feel it with them. So when they ask you to cover for them just this once, you say yes. Then just this once becomes twice, then every week. And the moment you try to draw a line, they hit you with, "I thought we were friends. I'm going through so much right now. I can't believe you do this to me." The thing is, they don't run on your moral code. They don't feel the pull to return kindness. They read your empathy not as decency, but as a vulnerability to be worked. 3 ways they use it. First, the sob story that erases accountability. Every screw-up comes wrapped in a tragedy that makes it not their fault. Second, the "I thought we were friends" line, deployed the instant you protect yourself, so that your boundary somehow feels like a betrayal. Third, the slow guilt trip, where "I'm going through a lot" becomes a permanent permit to underperform, to disrespect you, to lean on you, and you're expected to just absorb it because you're a good person. So now you know the 5 traits. Here's the part that actually changes your life. How do you become untargetable? First, stop being the path of least resistance. Hold the boundary without the apology attached. Not, "Sorry, but I can't take that on." Just, "I can't take that on." Full stop. No defense, no backstory. No is a complete sentence. And match their temperature. If they go cold, stay polite and distant. Don't chase their warmth back. Let them sit in it. Second, document everything. Toxic people despise a paper trail, so build one. Note who said what and when. When someone commits to something out loud, send a short follow-up to put it in writing. "So we're agreed you'll have this to me by Friday, yes?" That does 2 jobs. It protects you when they try to rewrite history, and it quietly tells them you are not someone they can gaslight. Third, build a few real alliances. You don't need to be popular. You need 2 or 3 respected people who genuinely know the quality of your work and would vouch for you if your name came up when you weren't in the room. And make your wins visible to the people who matter. Don't brag, but don't disappear either. When you do something well, make sure the right people actually know it happened. Fourth, master emotional neutrality. Some people call it the gray rock method. Be unremarkable. Give them nothing. When they try to bait you, hand them something flat. "Huh, interesting." Then disengage and walk away. End the conversation. When the reaction dries up, the supply dries up, and they go hunting for someone who will still flinch. And fifth, the paradox that ties it all together. The moment you genuinely stop caring, they usually stop, because they were only ever after your reaction. They need you affected. The second you're truly indifferent, their power evaporates. So stop trying to fix it. Stop trying to win them over. Stop trying to prove you're a good person. Just do your work, stay professional, and be completely unbothered by the game they're playing. If any of this landed a little too close to home, drop a comment and tell me which trait hit the hardest. Was it the boundaries, the competence, the reactivity, the isolation, the empathy? I read them. And if you want the exact phrases that make a toxic coworker quietly decide you're not worth the effort, The real scripts you can use in the moment, that's what we're breaking down next. Subscribe and turn on notifications so it doesn't slip past you. And remember this, you were never the problem. You just needed to see the game they were playing. Now you do. I'll see you in the next one.